So I've been on the road a lot the last couple of months, and I got to tell you, everywhere I go, everywhere, there's one constant. Americans, I can't find them. They're not working. Not the side hustles for sure. Certainly not a lot of entry jobs, but even some really good jobs, they're just not there. You know, give me an example. I had to get a refund from Grubhub over the weekend. I ordered some food, a lot of food, and the driver could not find the hotel. So I texted him, I called him, he wouldn't pick up. And, you know, listen, this hotel, by the way, wasn't a hotel. It was a resort the size of a state like Rhode Island, right? So it turns out he sent me a text. He says, I don't speak English. He wouldn't pick up. Eventually showed me, he sent the picture of the bag somewhere. Who knows where it was? I didn't get it. And so I think about this because there's been a lot of discussions, right? I mean, we know how many American men have left the labor force. They're not even counted anymore. They just left. They vanished. A lot of ideas on how to get them back. How should we lure them back? I got an idea, though. How about we just cut them off? Because I wonder, how do they eat? How do they pay their rent? I want to bring in Unleashed Prosperity, their senior fellow, also Heritage Foundation chief economist, EJ Antoni. EJ, great to have you in here. I mean, so this is one thing we talk about all the time. I ask economists about this all the time. You know, go and catch an Uber right now. It will not be an American driving. And listen, I give props to anyone who's out there hustling, but how do people get away with not working?
Well, Charles, exactly as you were saying, you have to cut them off because right now you can get a tremendous amount of government subsidies, right, of taxpayer-funded money, whether you're talking cash or in-kind benefits. If you look at D.C., for example, where I work, a family of four, counting both in-kind and cash benefits, can get the equivalent of over $120,000 annually.
$120,000.
Right. So imagine you're a single parent with 3 kids, that family of 4. That's how much you have to make in order to have the same standard of living or quality of life as if you made no money at all. You were, let's say, on disability, right, and just sat at home all day.
Right.
So of course people are taking that option.
Right. And that seeps into conversations about open borders and things like that. You know, no one wants to talk about this part of the conversation, and yet the same people who are willing to take taxpayer money to subsidize, you know, people not working also say open the borders. But it's untenable. It can't continue that way.
Right, and exactly, Charles, what we saw during the Biden years, and it's very clear when you look at the number of people on disability, it's relatively flat, essentially, until the beginning of 2021, and then it just zooms higher, because they not only expanded how much you can get in terms of aid and all these different programs, but they also basically relaxed the rules, right, in terms of who could get in. Right. It was that 1-2 punch, and it took all these people out of the labor force, as you described, and we simply replaced them with people from overseas.
All right, well, they call it the crazy check. Untenable was the way Japan had operated for 2 decades, a lost 2 decades, and finally they have voted for prosperity. They've got a new prime minister. Your initial thoughts?
I think she's the right person to lead Japan right now. She has a lot of, I think, very Trumpian characteristics, and I think she's going to work well with the president in the same way that he works well, with example, with Meloni over in Italy, right? Right. He can really get along with them, and I think that's going to be particularly helpful when it comes to things like trying to strike a trade deal.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, the markets love it. They absolutely love it, you know, because they were just sort of surviving, and now it looks like they want to learn how to thrive, and they need to, because that is a country that is dying in more ways than one. I got to ask you about here, the PE scare we had last week. Is that over? Is the banking crisis already over, or should we keep an eye on that?
I think we definitely need to keep an eye on it. You know, the regional banks, the small banks. I mean, look at things like commercial real estate, which has been problematic for years. It was problematic back in 2019, and the problem got papered over by the Fed's cash cannon in early 2020 and the rock bottom interest rates that allowed them to refinance all those loans. As they've come due for additional refinancings, the problems have reemerged. Commercial real estate is over 30% of the balance sheets, right, at small banks. It's less than 6% at large banks. So it's clear that you have a very different set of problems at those small banks, at the regional banks. That's just one of them. You know, I'm worried about the buy now, pay later stuff, how that is disproportionately allocated among certain banks as well.
So I got less than a minute, but I got to bring up CPI. I think comes out Friday. You know, so we'll get the CPI report. We'll see what it says. Obviously, you didn't get a chance to get in there to clean stuff up. But what do you think with respect to that and inflation, the inflation question, and the Federal Reserve? Because he's been clinging to the inflation part of this for a long time. I think he can't ignore labor anymore, but we'll see on Friday.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm still worried about how much of the CPI we're imputing.
Right.
In other words, we don't actually have the info, and BLS is basically filling in all those empty cells with little more than an educated guess sometimes. So that's very problematic, especially for this one. The reason we're even getting this report during the shutdown is because we have to use it for COLAs, for these cost of living adjustments, things like Social Security for next year, because it's the end of the third quarter. So again, very problematic. Will probably come in, though, about 3%. Again, the confidence interval there is pretty wide, though,
right,
because we're not sure how much of the data is actually good and how much of it is just a guess.
EJ, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Charles.
Talk to you again real soon. All right, folks, by the way, it's not too late, believe it or not, to register for the town hall tomorrow. Unbreakable Investor, Rise in the Machine, and your prosperity, folks. This is your time to change your life. 2 p.m. tomorrow. This is what you do. You sign up to join me in person in the studio. You go to foxbusiness.com/Charles Payne Live. It will be a blast. Wait till you see the A block. Oh, my goodness.